What's going on, knuckleheads? This is George with Fighters Rep, and this is our Sunday evening discussion, 9 p.m. We're going live just about every day at 9 p.m. Today we're going to be talking about Canelo versus Beterbiev. Is this fight even possible? Is this fight something that could actually happen? Is this fight something that is going to happen? Well, let's just lay a little bit of a foundation here before we continue. So, as we all know, Artur Beterbiev on Friday night went ahead and unified the titles in the light heavyweight division against Alexander Gvozdyk in a very entertaining fight where either guy could have won the fight. Going into it, it was a very even fight. Nobody knew who to pick to win. Nobody knew who was going to win. And we saw a very special performance by Artur Beterbiev, who basically broke down Alexander Gvozdyk using his counterpunching, his power, and his technical smothering of Alexander Gvozdyk, basically wearing him out to the point where in the 9th round, his body just started to betray him, and in the 10th round, he was able to drop Gvozdyk 3 times and finish the fight and get the KO. A lot of people, by the way, are saying that Gvozdyk gave up. If I'm being honest, I don't think Gvozdyk gave up. I think his body just could not take any more punishment, and it gave out on him. He was in there. He was trying to fight, and he just couldn't get the win. So Beterbiev ended up unifying the WBC and the IBF belt. He took the WBC light heavyweight title off of Gvozdyk, and the only other 2 guys holding belts in the light heavyweight division are Dmitry Bivol, who looks like a solid young fighter, and Sergey Kovalev, who, is definitely entering into the twilight of his career, or rather, nearing the end of his career, if you're asking me. And this is the reason why I feel like Canelo Alvarez is deciding to take this fight right now against Sergey Kovalev, because he sees a weakness in Kovalev, something that he can exploit, and that's why he's taking this fight. He's moving all the way up to 175 pounds, and this is not something that would typically be advised of a guy who's even small at middleweight. But Canelo Alvarez, for whatever reason, has decided to jump up to the light heavyweight division to take on Sergey Kovalev. Now, in my opinion, if you ask me, the reason he's picking Sergey Kovalev is because he's the weakest link. He is at the end of his career. He's taken a couple losses in his past few fights. He had a very tough fight against Anthony Yarde in his last outing, where he was nearly put down near the end of the fight before coming back and winning the fight against a worn-out Anthony Yarde, who was knocked down and out by a jab, mind you, in that fight, and basically didn't get up because of exhaustion, because Anthony Yarde had basically blown his load, I believe, in the round before, trying to get Kovalev out of there because he had hurt him. So, if you ask me, this is a very calculated fight by Canelo Alvarez, something very typical of boxing culture, the boxing establishment, whatever you want to call it. Not something that I'm a huge fan of. I love boxing, but I don't like the idea of fighters eroding and then people targeting them. But that's instead of fighting the best guys. But that's kind of what's happening here. Instead of fighting the best guys, and as much as I enjoy watching Canelo Alvarez fight, and I love Canelo Alvarez, instead of fighting the best guys in his division, he's moving up to the 175-pound division to secure another title in a 4th weight class. So it's a legacy fight. It's an easier fight, I think, than him staying at middleweight and maybe taking on Demetrius Andrade or someone else like that. And that's why he's picking Kovalev. So in theory, Canelo Alvarez could fight Sergey Kovalev, could beat Sergey Kovalev, which I think he will do, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think Canelo Alvarez fights Sergey Kovalev in this calculated fight, beats Sergey Kovalev, and then what happens? You see, that's where my curiosity starts to elevate. That's where he's piqued my curiosity. What happens after he beats Kovalev, which I think he will? And even more disastrous, what happens if he loses to Kovalev? But I think what happens after he beats Kovalev, does he stick around and fight Bivol? Does he try to take on Artur Beterbiev? I think that's a question that a lot of fight fans may have in mind right now after Beterbiev's performance and after basically this news that Canelo Alvarez, who's probably the single most powerful and popular fighter in the sport of boxing, is moving up to the light heavyweight division. A lot of bright lights right now are on this light heavyweight division. So I think this is a question a lot of people have, and they're wondering, is this guy, Canelo Alvarez, going to stick around at light heavyweight, or is he going to drop back down to middleweight? Knuckleheads, if you ask me, Canelo Alvarez, after he beats Kovalev in the 175-pound division, which I can be entirely wrong about, Kovalev could still beat him. It's a very tough fight. But I think he beats Kovalev because Kovalev's entered the twilight of his career, and I think as soon as he does that and wins the title of the light heavyweight division, he bails. I do not think you see a Canelo Alvarez stick around to fight Dmitry Bivol, although that's a possibility. And I certainly don't think you see a Canelo Alvarez stick around to fight an Artur Beterbiev who looked absolutely like the freaking Terminator in his fight on Friday night. And definitely not a guy to mess around with. Definitely not a guy to experiment with if you want to, dip your toes in a brand new division. He is not the guy. Artur Beterbiev, technically sound, a high ring IQ, vicious power. And again, I've indicated this on social media. I've never seen in years, I've never seen anybody with that much physical strength, somebody just so physically strong in boxing. A couple people that were brought up to me on social media when I mentioned that Artur Beterbiev is one of the physically strongest guys I've ever seen in boxing. A couple people that were brought up to me were Marvin Hagler and Evander Holyfield, and I do think he's on that level physically. He's just an absolute physical specimen. The guy is a monster physically. In fact, I would say pound for pound, I find him to be stronger than Evander Holyfield because Holyfield didn't have the one-punch knockout power, the devastating power that Artur Beterbiev has. I do think a guy like Hagler is a proper comparison to an Artur Beterbiev. I mean, he's just that much of a destroyer in there. He's just that physically strong. And I just don't see Canelo or his team. I mean, I could imagine Canelo, assuming he's who I think he is, which is a real fighter and a guy that would be willing to take on anyone. I think Canelo would probably be willing to fight him. He did step in there with who I think is one of the greatest boxers of all time, if not the greatest boxer of all time, in Floyd Mayweather, when he was just a young pup. So I don't think he would hesitate personally to fight anybody, but I think his team would absolutely steer him the hell away from Artur Beterbiev, who's just an absolute animal. And get this, man, this guy, Artur Beterbiev, is a light heavyweight as a pro, but actually fought as a heavyweight is my understanding, for some time in the amateur ranks, had a fantastic amateur career, a two-time Olympian, and he actually fought Alexander Usyk. Now, I'm not talking about Gvozdyk, the guy he fought on Friday, who he also had fought previously in the amateurs. No, I'm talking about his fellow countryman, the new heavyweight on the block, Alexander Usyk. That's a guy that Artur Beterbiev has actually fought. So this guy's actually fought heavyweight. So, I mean, this is not the guy to experiment with. And I don't see Canelo or his team going anywhere near Artur Beterbiev unless, perhaps, I don't know. I can't think of any reasonable scenario where they would go to Artur Beterbiev. He's not well known. He's not a big money fight. It would be pure legacy. He's so high risk and low reward that I couldn't even think of one situation or circumstance where Canelo would want to fight that guy. I think he'd do better off fighting against Bivol. But if you ask me, I think he's going to fight Sergey Kovalev, who's now, in my opinion, with all due respect to Sergey Kovalev, he's over the hill at this time. He's still dangerous, but I do think he's over the hill, and I do think Canelo's going to beat him, and now I'm going to explain to you guys why I think Canelo's going to beat him, and it's pretty simple. Sergey Kovalev throws a lot of straight punches, and as we've seen, Canelo Alvarez's head movement is just absolutely ridiculous. He's going to go on the inside like he does with so many other guys, and he is going to do heavy, heavy damage to the body. He's a smart fighter, Canelo Alvarez. He's a technical fighter. He knows what he's got to do against Kovalev. Andre Ward already laid out the blueprint on how to beat Sergey Kovalev. I did think Kovalev beat him in that first fight, but I thought Andre Ward did not hit him low in that second fight. I thought Andre Ward figured Kovalev out, went to the body, and absolutely destroyed him in that second fight. And I think Canelo Alvarez is going to do the same thing to Kovalev. He's going to take the fight to him. He's going to use that head movement, smart, slick pressure, sort of the way that Artur Beterbiev does, but with obviously more head movement and speed and snap on the punches. I think Canelo Alvarez has serious power in his hands. I think he's going to let those hands go. They're going to land on Kovalev's body, and he's just not going to like it. Also, Kovalev is not known to be a very physically strong fighter, so I don't think he's going to be able, unless he lands that jab over and over again, which is going to be difficult for him, to keep Canelo off him. So I do think it's a dangerous fight, because if Canelo does land a big shot, if Kovalev does land a big shot on Canelo, he could hurt him. He could put him to sleep. But I think at this time, we gotta definitely go with Canelo on this one. He's too young. He's priming. He's surging. Well, he's only 28 years old. He hasn't even reached his peak, and he's already so far above and beyond, or rather, he's 29 years old now, and he's already so far above and beyond so many of the people that should be in his division or in all the divisions around him. If I'm being honest, again, I think he fights Kovalev, wins that title, evacuates, goes back to middleweight, and I think at that point, maybe he fights Triple G again for an easy third trilogy fight, makes some big money off of that, because Triple G is another guy who's definitely starting to deteriorate, as we saw in that Derevyanchenko fight. I don't think Triple G is the same guy. I mean, he did look sick in that corner, but I don't see Triple G being the same guy. Even in that second Canelo fight, man, he just didn't look the same. So I think Canelo probably drops back to middleweight, maybe fights Triple G. I don't know, maybe goes after someone else that's weak in one of these divisions so he can claim another weight class and say that he won a title in that weight class. And that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think he's going to fight Beterbiev. But, I'd love to know what you guys think. There are a lot of people in the chat room. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate all the comments you guys are leaving. Thanks for joining me on a Sunday. It's Anxiety Sundays. The only way to cure it is with some whiskey. I don't have my whiskey right now, but I might get it delivered in a minute here. But thank you guys for joining the chat. If you guys like to talk about combat sports and you want to help me build the channel and Fighters Rep, which is the best kickboxing striking promotion on earth, feel free to subscribe, like, share, and donate to the super chat. Get your Fighters Rep gear in the links in the description. And if you click the Amazon affiliate link in the link in the description, yes, we are an Amazon affiliate. Anything you purchase from there, it's going to take you to some hand wraps. But anything you purchase after clicking that, whether it's the hand wraps or something else, will get a commission. And it's going to be reinvested right back into Fighters Rep. So thank you guys so much. We got Marco Martinez in the chat. King Dale Clark in the chat. Thanks for joining. Coke Boys. Don Vergas. Bunch of people in the chat. Let's go through some of these comments here. Marco Martinez, I can't believe the disrespect to Kovalev. Like he's some bum off the street. Kovalev is a 175-pound title holder. He hits like a truck still. Power is the last to go. Canelo will work over Andrade, but there's no money in it. What middleweight outside of Triple G can sell a ticket? If boxing has become just about purses, what's the point? Well, Marco, I do think Canelo still has power, or rather Kovalev still has power. It's a dangerous fight, but like I said, he's eroded to the point where I don't think he's going to give Canelo too much trouble. And we've seen Canelo eat Triple G's biggest punches. Something tells me Triple G can hit very hard, probably as hard as Kovalev. If we're being honest, Triple G is known for his huge power. And so if that wasn't enough to stop Canelo, I don't think Kovalev will be. And I do see, Canelo getting his hand raised in that one. I do think he should fight Andrade. I think there will be money in it just because Canelo has so much drawing power, but I do know what you mean. Andrade doesn't have that much drawing power, and it's because boxing has really screwed Demetrius Andrade over. He should be a lot more popular. He's an extremely talented fighter, but unfortunately, boxing culture, the boxing establishment has screwed the man. King Dale Clark is saying, dude, my online Ukrainian girlfriend was upset that Beterbiev won. I teased her about it. We had a good laugh on Skype, man. She was playing the poor me, trying to get me to feel sorry for her. It was so cute. I'm glad that was cute for you, King Dale Clark. I hope you didn't send her any money like I told you the last time. Coke Boys, thank you so much for joining. Beterbiev too much for Canelo. I agree with you 100,000%. Canelo does not want that smoke. Too much. Marco Martinez, King Dale's Ukrainian girlfriend, could give Canelo trouble. I heard she has a good jab. Did you ever send her the money? Oh, Marco Martinez. Seriously, this is the problem. With these huge fight deals like Canelo signed with DAZN, he can fight anyone he wants and avoid tougher challengers. That's true, but Demetrius Andrade, my understanding, is also a DAZN fighter. At least he's being promoted by Matchroom, who's basically the creator of DAZN. So I think if they wanted to make that fight, they can easily make that fight. Don Vergas, thank you so much, Don, for joining the chat. Please subscribe. Much appreciated. Says Kovalev is on the way out. That's why he's fighting him. I couldn't agree more. This is a big payday for Kovalev. This will be a big payday for Canelo. But definitely a big one for Kovalev. Definitely the biggest of his career, I would imagine. And you're right. He's on the way out. Excuse me. He's on the way out. And what better way to go out than with a whole lot of money? King Dale Clark. Oh my God, King Dale Clark, you and his girlfriend issue. You're killing me with this. My girl said, don't worry, my man will be back. I still have my boy Lomachenko. It was so cute, dude. She then started teasing me about our Luke Campbell being British, getting beat recently by Loma. That started an hour argument, dude. I can't get this girl out of my head. I'm in love, man. And guess what? She didn't ask me to send money, man. I'm glad she didn't ask you to send money. Don't send her money, brother. Not until you guys are married and she lives with you. Then you could let her borrow some money. Marco Martinez, I talk a lot of smack, but Canelo going from 147 all the way to 175 is impressive. Not as impressive to me as Floyd's career, but even Sugar Ray Robinson couldn't win at light heavyweight. It is impressive. Canelo's got great head movement. That's correct. I agree with that, and that's why I think he's going to, give Kovalev a lot of trouble, and that's from King Dale Clark. Don Vergas is saying he should fight the Charlos. He wants to see Canelo in there against the Charlos. I think that would be a good fight. I actually think Kovalev would probably beat the Charlos pretty easily. Well, not easily, but I do think he's too much for the Charlos at this point. I think they need some more work. One of them lost recently and lost his title. So, definitely I'd rather see him fight Demetrius Andrade, to be honest with you. And then, he's got a lot of guys in the division he could still clear out. The Charlos, a lot of people. He's obviously after some kind of legacy fight here and beating Kovalev and, saying that he won a title at a fourth weight division. King Dale Clark, Ward beat Kovalev twice legitimately. Only guys that can handle reality deny that. I disagree with you, my man. I think Kovalev won on points the first time, if I were judging it, but I thought Ward crushed him the second time. Don Vergas, Benavidez is there too. Benavidez, is he fighting at what weight class? Are you talking about middleweight? Don Vergas, let me know. But yeah, Benavidez would be a fun fight. Caleb Plant would be a fun fight. I want to see Benavidez and Plant fight, though. That's what I want to see first. And then maybe they can fight Canelo. Marco Martinez, you're right. Ward destroyed Kovalev in fight number 2. Took his soul and made him quit. I agree, and if I'm being honest, I don't think he made him quit. I think he hit him so hard to the body, he just shut him down. I mean, there's nothing you can do if somebody attacks your body and your body gives out on you. So I think that's what happened there. King Dale Clark, Canelo's the complete package. Got it all. My online babe also loves Canelo. King Dale, man, I need you to start talking about something else, my man. You're killing me with the girl stuff. Your boy Lewis, thank you so much for joining the chat, brother. Feel free to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. He's saying, do you think when Canelo's career ends, he'll be the greatest Mexican fighter ever? No, I don't think that. I think that's a hard thing to claim. He's got the potential, but there have been so many great fighters that came out of Mexico. You've got, obviously the great Julio Cesar Chavez. You got Juan Manuel Dinamita Marquez. You've got, who else? Oh, man, so many guys. Barrera, Eric Morales. The list goes on and on with the Mexican fighters. So, to say that you're the best Mexican fighter ever is a tough sell. But he'll definitely, I think he'll definitely come out somewhere near the very top there and be considered one of the greatest. But we'll see. He could still potentially be the greatest. I think to do that, though, he really needs to clean out that middleweight division. I think that's how he's going to achieve that greatest status with the hardcore fans, which I think is the most important if you want to claim to be the greatest of all time, from Mexico especially. Marco Martinez, your boy, no way Chavez will go down as the best Mexican ever, dominated his weight class. Outside Triple G, Canelo has handpicked his opponents carefully. Outside of Mayweather as well. Buddy Aces, I hope not. There should be many greats after him. King Dale Clark, Canelo beats them all besides Callum Smith. Yeah, Triple G's no defense style is probably catching up with him. I would love to see Callum Smith fight him too, man. I think Callum Smith is a real problem. A guy that big with arms that long and that physically strong. Yeah, it's just a handful. He's a handful, man. Don Verga, Spence Jr. said he would fight him. That would be a fun fight too, but if I'm being honest, I think Canelo's too much for Spence at this point, especially after that Sean Porter fight. I didn't really see anything in Spence that would indicate to me that Spence would be able to beat Canelo. He's also smaller. He'd have to come up. But, Canelo's not that big of a guy. I would like to see the fight. but I still like Demetrius Andrade because I think he's a great boxer and he's got some power and he's going to be bigger than Canelo. I mean, not more muscular or thicker, but taller and longer and still big enough and skilled. So I think that would be a great one. Marco Martinez. Spence, Red Canelo all day. King Dale Clark, my man. I appreciate you being in the chat, my brother, but I gotta stop reading the girl stuff, bro. Uh, so I guess King Dale Clark is talking to his girl about boxers dying. There's unfortunately been many deaths or boxers seriously injured this year. There have been 4 deaths in 2019, you guys, and it's really sad. 4 deaths in boxing just in 2019, and then we had Patrick Day becoming the 4th, so that was horrific. Marco Martinez, where do you rate Billy Joe Saunders? Is he a threat at middleweight? No way is Canelo too much for Spence. I think Canelo beats Spence, man. I think Canelo beats Spence. Canelo's now moving up to light heavyweight to fight. Spence is at 154 still. Or no, 147. Spence is a welterweight. So 147. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think Spence beats Canelo. I just don't see it. Maybe in the future, but not right now. Let's see what else here. Yeah, Callum Smith is huge. Okay, dude, I appreciate it. Sorry, I can't get this girl out of my head. I love her, man. Oh my goodness. King Dale Clark, you are a hilarious guy, man. Marco Martinez, as far as Billy Joe Saunders, I do think Billy Joe Saunders is a very slick boxer. I would have loved to see what would have happened between him and Andrade had he not been busted for PEDs. I think Billy Joe Saunders is actually one of the slickest boxers in the division. And I do think that he would give Canelo fits. He's very tough. Assuming he came in focused, because there's the half-assed Billy Joe Saunders and the really focused good Billy Joe Saunders. And I think if we get the latter as opposed to the former, then he can give anybody a fight, man. He can beat anybody, and I believe that, man. And I feel the same way about Andrade. These guys can beat anyone, man. They're really slick. They're really skilled. And I would like to see those fights, but unfortunately, we have this ridiculous, boxing culture that's obstructing the best fights from happening. The boxing establishment. Here it is. You just, you fight tomato cans. You pad your record. And then you take money fights instead of taking challenging fights. It's just weird. And that's why it was so refreshing to have Gvadzik and Beterbiev fight on Friday night. I loved that, man. So yeah, I think Billy Joe Saunders is up there. I think Demetrius Andrade is up there. I'd even like to see, as Don Vergas indicated, the Charlos. And I'd like to see Spence, if he moved up, fight, These are all good fights. And these are all fights that, Canelo could make. Even Derevyanchenko, the guy who fought Triple G. I mean, that was a fantastic fight. And he gave Danny Jacobs a hell of a fight too. And Canelo fought Jacobs. So, I mean, why not fight Derevyanchenko as well? There are a lot of guys in that division, in and around that division, that are a dangerous fight for Canelo that he should be taking as opposed to, what he's doing. James Rich. Let me see here. Thanks for joining the chat, James Rich. Much appreciated, brother. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Baby Joe Messi wanted back in. They probably saved his life banning him. Baby Joe Messi. Not sure what you're talking about right there. Don Vargas, for Canelo to be top, he needs to hold the middleweight division undisputed for longer than Bernard Hopkins, and I don't know if that's going to happen. Bernard Hopkins, Don, had a hell of a run, my brother. I don't know if if he's going to be capable of doing that. But, he should be challenged to do that because, like you're saying, Don, you seem to be a knowledgeable boxing fan, and even you're saying it. For him to be at the top, considered the best, even amongst just the Mexican fighters, he's going to have to do something like that. He's going to have to, show us hardcore fans like me and you that he's not just, able to beat guys whose careers are ending or, able to beat these hand-picked guys. He's going to have to clean out a division and stop jumping around. Marco Martinez, not sure if you saw, but the UFC paid tribute to Patrick Day at the beginning of the broadcast. Wow, that's really cool. I didn't notice that, but that's really cool. That's really nice that they did that. And I think, Dana White is definitely trying to segue himself into the sport of boxing. He's also been talking about Eddie Hearn being willing to work with him, and Al Heyman definitely working with Al Heyman in the future is what he said. So I'm definitely excited about Zuffa's foray into boxing. I think they would probably do a better job just with their already established culture than boxing is doing. Since in the UFC you have the best guys fighting the best guys. Now, would fighters be willing to jump on board Zuffa knowing that they'd be in danger of, losing? Since this boxing culture of being undefeated in A-side, B-side is so entrenched already. It's an establishment, it's an institution. Would the fighters be willing to jump on board with Zuffa and, basically risk their O? Somebody's O has got to go in the UFC, unless you're really special, like a Khabib Nurmagomedov, like a John Jones, people like that. And even, excuse me, even John Jones, his only loss was a BS disqualification. So I didn't like that. But like I said, would these boxers be willing to step into an environment where they could lose, where it would fly in the face of the boxing culture that they're used to, that they grew up with? I think that's going to be a tough sell, but Dana White is so fantastic as a promoter. If anybody can do it, he can do it. Don Vargas is saying, did Saunders pop hot? Yes, something happened with Billy Joe Saunders with PEDs or something. He was supposed to fight Demetrius Andrade, and he got caught doing something. So they canceled the fight, and I believe that's what happened. And so we'll see what happens with Billy Joe Saunders. He's another guy that's been on the shelf for a long time. He's a huge waste of talent. And if you look at the next comment from King Dale Clark, he's saying that I think Saunders, along with Kell Brook, is a waste of talent. I'm out. Can't keep the lady waiting. Take care, man. Take care, King. Appreciate you jumping on the chat, brother. Much appreciated, man. So even King, before leaving, saying, I think Saunders, along with Kell Brook, is a waste of talent. I think both of those guys, are a waste of talent. Kell Brook, not so much. I think Kell Brook has shown his talent. But Saunders still needs, some big fights to kind of showcase himself to the public, especially to people in the United States. At least Kell Brook had that fight with Triple G and the fight with Errol Spence to kind of indicate to people that, hey, I'm a really talented guy. He was in there with Triple G until getting stopped, and he was definitely in there with Errol Spence before getting stopped. I actually hope to see Kell Brook continue to fight and, hopefully improve and keep winning. He's a great fighter. Marco Martinez, have you seen Chavez Jr.'s recent videos? He looks like he really got himself in shape. He's got a great name still. He still can have some paydays in his future if he takes the sport seriously. I'm not sure if you've seen Marco Martinez, but Chavez Jr. actually has a big fight coming up And it's going to be against Daniel Jacobs. So that's going to be an exciting one. Marco Martinez, Canelo couldn't hold the belt as long as Hopkins because he gets into too many slugfests. Hopkins was a slick boxer who avoided punishment. Marco Martinez, don't want to waste your time with Zuffa boxing, but Dana's model would never work in UFC due to Ali Act. Dana won't have that much control over fighters. Well, there are loopholes in everything, Marco Martinez, and I think if Al Heyman has done it with PBC, certain things that he wanted to do, then I think Dana would be able to do it, and maybe Dana could offer so much more to the fighters that he wouldn't need to control or monopolize. I just think his level of promotional skills, his level of promotion will be so appeasing to some fighters that they won't be able to say no, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't think the Ali Act is, is always a great thing or is always an effective thing. But that's something we definitely have to discuss on this channel and maybe make a video about pretty soon. Kell Brook, a waste of talent. The dude was a warrior. Beat the snot out of Porter when Porter was unbeaten and pushed Spence to the edge. Spence versus Brook made Spence a star. I agree. I don't think Kell Brook is I guess calling him a waste of talent is not the best way to talk about it, but I do think it's a waste in that they shouldn't have put him in there against Triple G, who was way bigger than him. And they should have probably moved him smarter against guys that he should have been in there against. I didn't even think that Triple G fight was a fair fight. Maybe without having taken that fight, he would have beaten Spence, and he'd be somewhere else in his career. So that's kind of the way I see the waste of talent sort of lens, or when it comes to Kell Brook, what I think of when I think waste of talent, it's that he just shouldn't have been in there fighting the guys, especially Triple G. He shouldn't have been fighting Triple G. I mean, Triple G is a middleweight, and Kell Brook was a welterweight, fighting Sean Porter. So, I mean, he basically jumped up 2 classes to fight Triple G, who's a monster in the middleweight division. So, I think that was a mistake. Don Vergas is saying, what do you think about Tyron Woodley calling out Canelo? Well, I didn't hear about that, but if that actually happened, that is absolutely ridiculous. Tyron Woodley has no chance in hell of touching a Canelo Alvarez, and I think he'd get knocked out in vicious fashion if he ever boxed Canelo Alvarez. He needs to worry. I think Tyron Woodley needs to worry about getting that title back from Kamaru Usman, or making his way back up in his own sport, because he got shut out by Usman. So he has no business calling out Canelo, but hey, maybe he just wants a payday. Everybody wants a payday. Marco Martinez, what's the weight on the Chavez versus Jacobs? I would imagine it's middleweight. Let's take a look here. I would imagine it is middleweight. Yes. Well, actually, no. It looks like it's going down at super middleweight. So that fight's happening at super middleweight. That should be an interesting one, and I look forward to seeing it. I mean, if Julio Cesar Chavez can just stand there and bang, he's got a shot against Daniel Jacobs, who's going to be moving up in weight. I think Chavez is probably, honestly, the more physical guy. Very durable. Jacobs durable as well and physical as well. Much more technical than Chavez. So I would have to go with Daniel Jacobs winning that fight. But it could be an interesting fight if Julio Cesar Chavez can keep it on the inside and bang him. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun fight to watch. And, he does have a chin, so that'd be fun. Don Vergas is saying Brook broke his orbital on the Triple G fight and the other side of the Spence fight. I think you're absolutely right. He broke one for the Triple G fight and the other for the Spence fight, and who knows, maybe, I heard something about, like, they being easier to break once you've broken one. So I don't know. That's why I think, he should probably have stayed away from Triple G. But he did what he did, and you got to give the guy credit. He had a lot of heart to do that, a lot of balls to do that. Marco Martinez saying UFC fighters need to stop calling out boxers. It's like LeBron James calling out Serena Williams. I agree with that, Marco Martinez. Dom Vargas is saying Jacobs destroys Chavez Jr. I do think Jacobs technically destroys Chavez Jr., but as far as knocking him out, again, they're moving up in weight. That's going to be Jacobs' first fight at this weight class. Maybe he comes in stronger, but maybe he doesn't. Jacobs hasn't really been laying people out as of late. He's fought to a lot of decisions lately. Let's take a look at Daniel Jacobs, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. So Daniel Jacobs, in his last fight, lost a decision to Saul Alvarez. Before that, won a split decision against Sergey Derevyanchenko. Before that, won a decision against Selesky. Before that, another decision against Luis Arias, who's pretty small for the middleweight division. Again, and it was a decision. Before that, lost a decision to Gennady Golovkin. And his last TKO was in 2016 against Sergio Mora, who's, kind of a smaller guy. So I don't really see Danny Jacobs knocking Julio Cesar Chavez out, although that's possible. I see this as a rough, tough fight, and I think it would be a fun fight to watch. Marco Martinez saying, one of the biggest letdowns for me was when Chavez fought Sergio Martinez. He had the power to hurt Martinez, but fought horribly for 11.5 rounds. He just didn't have the technique to fight Sergio Martinez, who was one of the best, technicians at the time, and who also had like speed and decent power and really good movement. And, Sergio Martinez really knew what he was doing in there. That's the same guy that, basically ruined a lot of people's careers, Sergio Martinez. We'll leave it at that. The guy was a beast. What was Jacobs' biggest career win? I think Jacobs' biggest career win was probably, one of them was definitely against Peter Quillen. I think that was probably one of his biggest wins. Some people think he won that Triple G fight. I'm going to have to disagree 100% on that. I didn't think he won that Triple G fight at all. I actually thought Triple G jabbed his face off. But, that's my opinion. Who is Saul Alvarez? Marco Martinez, you know who that is. Well, Knuckleheads, thank you so much for joining the chat. I appreciate you guys. I'm about to wrap it up right now. I got to go get some other stuff done, but I appreciate you guys. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, do everything the great people on YouTube do. Again, feel free to donate to the Super Chat or the links in the description below. Get your Fighters Rep gear or buy from the Amazon affiliate link. We are an Amazon affiliate, so be sure to do that. We'll get credit, and any of the monies that we get are going to be reinvested right back in to Fighters Rep Promotions. Marco Martinez, I thought Jacobs won the Triple G fight. You are absolutely tripping. Go take a look at CompuBox on that one, brother, and rewatch the fight. Have a great night, everybody. I appreciate you guys joining me on this chat. We'll see you soon. Remember, 9 p.m. almost every day. See you guys.